Which would you rather trust with your life savings? A handful of cash, a handful of banks, or a handful of bits?
This week, Click grabs a fistful of dollars and turns them into bitcoins. This strange new currency is controlled by no one and everyone, but we'll find out if it's an idea that's worth buying into. He's changed the world once. Can he help do it again? We'll sit down with the inventor of the web to talk about the good causes technology is being aimed at now. That plus the latest tech news and a date for your diary in Webscape as we fill your schedule with apps to keep you on time.
Welcome to Click, I'm Spencer Kelly, and welcome to the financial heart of London. That is the Bank of England, the place in charge of this stuff, the UK's finances. And although it's the job of everyone around here to keep things all ticking over nicely, of course recently they've had a tougher time than normal. The global economic crisis is hitting some nations really hard. Back in March, as Cyprus's economy teetered on the brink, its banks closed down for 2 weeks to prevent anxious savers from pulling out all their cash. But in the last few months, as economies have fallen, a new currency has begun to rise to fame: Bitcoin. It is the world's first digital currency, and what's really unusual about it is that it's not owned or regulated by any bank or any institution. You buy bitcoins with real money at online exchanges. Each bitcoin is a long, unique string of digits which is stored on your computer or your phone in a file called a digital wallet. But don't confuse them with things like Microsoft points or Facebook credits. These are simply online vouchers tied to real-world currencies with fixed exchange rates. Bitcoin has its own value, its own exchange rate, which fluctuates against other currencies. And also, even though it only exists online, it actually behaves a lot more like the physical cash that people trust. A transaction is as simple as me handing you these notes. It's a guaranteed payment, no middleman. As soon as you hand over the money, the deal is done.
There's a lot of advantages to taking Bitcoin over other payments, say for example PayPal or a credit card or any other form of mechanism short of a bank transfer, is that any other payment method can be reversed, which means if someone comes to your site, uses a stolen credit card, 3 months down the line after you've shipped the goods, potentially that could be charged back, you've lost your goods, and of course you've reimbursed the card company. With Bitcoin, all transactions are final.
And for those whose currencies have been restricted, like Cyprus, or whose currencies are devaluing, like Argentina's, bitcoins have become a viable investment. Not that it's risk-free. No one is controlling Bitcoin's exchange rate, and that means it fluctuates wildly. When Cypriots started turning their euros into bitcoins, the value shot up. After a cyber attack designed to manipulate the currency, its value crashed.
The story of Bitcoin is a rather mysterious one. In 2009, someone calling themselves Satoshi Nakamoto published a paper online which declared that they'd worked out how to create a digital currency which was completely decentralized. There would be no mint to create the coins, no authority to regulate them, no banks to store them or check if anyone was forging or copying them. All of this would be done by the computer code which Nakamoto released onto the internet.
But weirdly, no one knows who Nakamoto really is. All we know is that so far, the theory and the computer code seem to be working.
The way the cryptography has been implemented is very sound. The vision behind it is remarkable. A certain kind of genius. The mathematics behind it is mind-boggling.
Security expert Jacques Erasmus is one of those who've downloaded Nakamoto's code and become a Bitcoin miner.
It's their machines which police the Bitcoin currency by verifying the transactions of others. Their job is to spot and invalidate forged Bitcoin serial numbers and attempts to spend the same Bitcoin twice. For this service, the miners get a transaction fee, a small percentage in Bitcoins. But the mining software does a second job too. It creates Bitcoins. Creating a new Bitcoin with a valid ID number involves trying trillions of combinations of digits in the hope of finding one that fits a certain pattern. It's mathematically very difficult, and intentionally so. Nakamoto's program is designed to use so much processing power that all the mining hardware in the world will only create a few Bitcoins between them every hour.
So this machine's been mining for like 4 days, non-stop, flat out.
Yeah.
And as you can see over here, it's mined 0.04 of a Bitcoin. So it will take you maybe a month to 40 to 50 days, I would think, to mine one Bitcoin.
That's not a very good rate of return. There are fast food restaurants that pay better.
There definitely are, yeah, no, that's for sure.
In fact, if you really want to mine at a decent rate, you need to buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of dedicated hardware. But the fact that Bitcoin behaves a lot like cash does present some problems. For one, the only place your Bitcoins are stored is in your digital wallet. How easy is it to steal a wallet from someone else's computer?
At this point in time, it's very easy. That is one of the main weaknesses in the structure at the moment. There's a lot of malware out there that contain keylogging capabilities that are actually purposefully looking for wallets, Bitcoin wallets, and logging the associated passwords that unlock the wallet. So if you have those two pieces, the password and the physical wallet, you can load that wallet up in your own software and empty out.
The thing is, physical cash also has another, shall we say, advantage. It's anonymous. There's no record of who owns what or who paid who, if you don't want there to be. And Bitcoin ticks those boxes too. And that means it's the currency of choice on the black market. This is one of several websites offering drugs and other illegal services. You can only access it by using special anonymizing software, and you can only pay using the equally anonymous Bitcoin. And it's this association with crime that could be Bitcoin's downfall.
One of the reasons that people trust state currencies, for example dollars, is that they have some fundamental value. You know that at some point in your life you're going to receive a tax bill, and you know that the government accepts dollars in tax. So that means that everybody trusts that they're going to be able to use the dollar to do something useful. Bitcoin, the problem it faces is that lots of its uses are somewhat shady, and there's a risk that suddenly trust in the system collapses and the value of Bitcoin could quickly go to zero.
So, clever maths won't necessarily be enough for Bitcoin to become a real, established currency. Ironically, it needs us to have confidence in it. Confidence which is, at the moment, hard to earn. If you use Bitcoins, we'd love to hear from you. If you accept them, if you trade them, if you've had some stolen, get in touch and share your experiences. We are click@bbc.co.uk, and we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Google+. Next up, a look at this week's tech news. Can an ultrabook function in the harsh and freezing wastes of Antarctica? Well, polar explorers Ben Saunders and Tarka Lepeniere will find out when they retrace Captain Scott's ill-fated trek across the southern polar region. They'll be equipped with a couple of ultrabooks powered by Intel's new Haswell processors, chips which its maker claims have been designed to offer greatly improved battery life. Freezing temperatures are, of course, notoriously battery sapping. To test the kit before the trip, engineers have been freezing it to -40 degrees and then thawing it out for 70 days. We'll find out if the laptops are up to the task when the explorers set off in October.
Online retail juggernaut Amazon has opened an online marketplace in India. Indian retail regulations prevent Amazon from selling its own products via the market, but third parties will be able to flog goods such as physical books, TV shows and movies via the site. India's e-retail market is pegged to be worth around $800 million, and that's with just 8% or so of the country online. It does face competition, though, from homegrown company Flipkart, which has been open for several years and is one of India's top 20 websites. Researchers at the University of Washington are working on an algorithm that detects tiny shifts in Wi-Fi signals when a user moves through it. The WeSee uses the changes in signals to recognise specific movements and can control everything from a sound system to a coffee maker, even through walls. The system is being designed to work with current wireless routers, though you might want to turn it off before practising those killer dance moves. But how about controlling devices without moving at all? A team at Minnesota University have developed a radio-controlled chopper which can be controlled by its pilot's thoughts. Wearing an electrode-covered cap, the university team have created software which allows a computer to interpret brain patterns centred on imagining different movements. Thinking about clenching each hand, for instance, can steer the whirlybird right or left. The team hopes that this sort of technology will be adopted by people with movement difficulties.
How do you change the world? Well, one answer is to start a company like Google. Another is to use your corporate muscle to inspire others to do the same. Well, that's exactly what Google itself has done. Earlier this year, it launched the Global Impact Challenge, and earlier this week, the results were in. Richard Taylor's been following the story, and he managed to sit down with one of its very influential judges.
Google's mission statement. But that "don't be evil" mantra doesn't always convince. Just ask British parliamentarians, who only last month accused the tech giant of shirking its fiscal responsibilities to the UK economy. Or privacy advocates who say the giant's taking unwarranted strides into our personal lives. But Google has always put a high premium on its corporate social responsibilities. And in that vein, it recently launched its Global Impact Challenge, asking British non-profits a simple question: how would you use technology to change the world? Well, earlier this month at a kind of X-Factor pitching session, the top 10 ideas were whittled down to 4 winners. Each receive a cool $750,000 and a development team to help them on their way. The ideas spanned the spectrum, from a project giving African communities off-grid access to low-cost and safe solar lighting, all the way through to an online and mobile platform for citizens in war-torn countries to report on development projects. Amongst the judges, Tim Berners-Lee, the man who invented that little-known creation, the World Wide Web. So I guess he'd be a reasonably good person to ask about how other would-be world changers can help do the same. So, are NGOs using technology as effectively as they could?
I think one of the reasons why this challenge is so good is that they're not typically. You know, if you look across the board, there are 2 problems. One is that you have a lot of NGOs which have been around for a while, and frankly, you know, the Ford Foundation addressed this with a workshop by bringing them all in and saying, you know, look, you know, you're in the age of technology. Show us how you're aware of that, because it's not obvious you're doing everything the same way. But then there's another way, which is perhaps more important, not just about modernizing what you've already been doing, but for looking at, okay, now, there's a completely new agenda of things we need to do. They need to create things which are sustainable. So they're looking at things which will either bring in money and then become a business themselves. And from the point of view of funders, often also they're not looking to something which they'll just be pouring money in. If the message can be, you can pour money in for a few years, and by then we will have created something which will actually be running out there and sustaining itself, often that's a much more interesting story.
Obviously, as the inventor of the web, you had a certain vision as to how it may develop. Has it developed very differently than how you envisaged?
Well, originally, it was supposed to be a very, very collaborative thing. So the very first web browser, which ran on this black Next machine, that was not just a browser, but an editor. So as you're browsing the web, if you found something in your group that, for example, that you could improve on, you could just edit it, and you could make links very, very easily from one page to the next, and then save them back, and then bing, you'd have yourself a hypertext link. So the idea was that it would be this collaborative space. So if we're working on a project, the project is in hyperspace. There, we build it together, and by sharing the building that project, that's the way we communicate, by sharing it. So all our ideas are in the space. So that didn't happen. In a way, it still hasn't got to being that very, very intuitive, collaborative medium. I think we're still working towards that.
And is it as open as you would like in terms of the idea of information being freely available, for example, across browsers? When you look at the rich media Web 2.0 world that we inhabit, where we're trying to watch videos and look at all sorts of other media, has that developed in a way that you're encouraged by? Because it still strikes me that there's lots of proprietary technologies that are still doing the rounds on the web. Is there still a way to go with that kind of openness?
With HTML5, we are in a better position than we have ever been. Yes, it is still really, really, it's a really very, very active area of standardization. So there's constructive tension between every browser manufacturer trying to make something a little bit smarter and trying to make theirs sort of smarter inside. But the major browser manufacturers, and that's the 5 you may have heard of in the West, and there are 5 in China, are collaborating in the HTML working group really fiercely, and I think we've got that tension between the competition, which makes people want to advance and push their own browser ahead of the other, and the realization that you have to have the open standards for the web to work as one web. That is sort of it's like the tension between the force in the sail and on the keel of a boat, and when it's right, the boat goes zooming forwards, and we're zooming forward pretty fast at the moment.
Okay, so you're pretty encouraged, so you don't worry about countries, for example, like Iran, basically saying we may go our own way with the internet, whatever that means, or that you have other systems that may not be completely compatible with the web?
Well, I'm encouraged at the level of standardization at the web level, that's at the browsers. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, the browsers rely on the underlying internet connectivity. And of course, I think a lot of people didn't realize, until the Mubarak regime turned off the internet in Egypt, that was the first time for a lot of people they realized it could happen. So a lot of people for the first time thought, wait a moment, who can turn off my internet? So yes, I think anybody who uses the web ought to spend a little bit of their time worrying about that, worrying about who can turn off your internet and who's spying on you. And in some countries, of course, it's not that it's being turned off. It's being that somewhere is spying on you, and you're going to get into trouble. It's a strong government that can allow people to communicate. It's a strong government that can allow people to see what the state of the world is. It's a strong government which can allow people to dissenting voices. And we're seeing more and more governments working towards that area where they can do that. Even though sometimes there are steps back, if you look at the world over a long period of time, I think that openness, in fact, is gaining. I think that democracy, bit by bit, is pushing us towards greater openness. So I'm hopeful.
The genie is out the bottle.
Sir Tim Berners-Lee in conversation with Richard Taylor. Now, I'd like to introduce you to my personal assistant, which, of course, is this thing. These days, we trust smartphones to run more and more of our lives. But when it comes to keeping a diary, what should you do? Stick with the calendar app that's pre-installed on the phone, or go for something third party? Well, that's a question Kate Russell hopes to answer now in Webscape.
I am a slave to my diary and have to consult my smartphone before agreeing to do anything. So I thought I'd give a few of the best calendar apps on the market a whirl to see if they simplify my schedule. WeekCal for iPhone is super quick and easy to set up, importing data from most popular calendars. It uses colour coding to help organise your life, but at $2, I don't feel it adds much to the native iPhone calendar. Fantastical is $4 on iPhone, and I love the look and the navigation, something that can be fiddly on the small screen of a phone. You can also add events with context using voice recognition. Lunch at home on Friday. And it will fill in the details for you. This kind of virtual assistant feature is where the power of third-party apps really is for me. Yes, there are plenty of free options out there, but if paying a couple of dollars is going to simplify my life, I'm all for it. For Android users, there's nothing to pay for Jorte Calendar. It's clear and simple with no bells or whistles, and while it doesn't do anything particularly groundbreaking, it does sync with Google Calendar, providing a unified experience across desktop and Android devices. If you want to give the native Android calendar a boost, then Agenda Widget is a nice customizable add-on, with free and paid versions that sit on your home screen, keeping you informed of any schedule entries, as well as any upcoming birthdays or special events. Now, it has to be said that smartphones of all flavours come with pretty good native calendar apps these days. So you might not need to upgrade at all unless you want the extra virtual assistant features offered by a third party or paid app. If you use Outlook or Google Calendar too, well, they have their own smartphone syncing apps for a seamless desktop to mobile experience. Windows Phone comes with a pretty elegant native calendar, but if you want to go for a different look with a few more features, Chronos is a good option for a couple of dollars with a free trial to start you off. It syncs seamlessly with your Microsoft account, of course, and the live tile can be customised to show whatever type of events you like. Well, that's your calendar sorted out, and now it's time to put something in it. Daybees is a great place to find events of interest, with a database of over 1.5 million gathered from across the web in over 230 genres, from football matches and concerts to auctions and crochet classes. The site isn't affiliated with any ticket sellers, although you can click through to buy tickets from its listings. It currently covers UK and US events, and the makers tell me they're working to expand into other territories soon as well. You can even sign up and run your events calendar from the site, as if you need another calendar now. Altogether though, a fresh, accessible way to find the best of everything going on, even in the most niche of entertainment genres. Got a large file you want to send to a Facebook friend? Stuff it down a pipe. This new drag and drop transfer service lets you send files up to 1 GB via a direct link from computer to computer, as long as you're both online. So it's as fast as your connections will allow and very private. There's a smaller 100 MB locker store for transfers to offline contacts. The developers say an iPhone app is currently in alpha testing stage, and the plan is to follow up with an Android app soon after. And Twitter's micro video blogging app Vine has made it onto Android this week. To celebrate, here is a Vine on my iPhone of a Vine on my Android. Totally meta.
Kate Russell's Webscape. Loving the new underground layer there, Kate. And if you have any suggestions for Webscape or any comments on anything else that you've seen this week, please do send them through. We are click@bbc.co.uk on the email, and we also live on Facebook, Twitter and Google+, as you know. Now, everything from this week's programme is up at our website, which is bbc.co.uk/click. So feel free to roam around there and enjoy. But that is it for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.